Okay, so the first step is we've made an Italian sofrito, and that just basically is onions, celery, and carrots. It's also called a mirepoix. And we are going to put this in oil. I've got about, I don't know, probably 3 tablespoons of olive oil in there at the moment. And we're going to put this all in and let it saute slowly. Once again, this is one of those recipes where we're going to build flavor. And this is the first step in that. Just going to let this saute for about 8 minutes. We want the onions to look translucent and the carrots and celery to be tender. And then we'll start adding some more flavor to that. So this is the basil. It's fresh basil. And you can put dried basil in as well. I just happen to have some growing, and I'm just going to put this in to the sauce. I like the freshness. It adds just a little bit of extra flavor. Okay, so these look awesome. The onions are translucent, the carrots and celery are soft. So the next thing we're going to do is I've got about half a teaspoon of thyme, a couple of teaspoons of oregano, and about a half a teaspoon to a teaspoon of rosemary. I have been making, and we're going to put this in on the heat and let those heat up. I'm going to turn the heat up just a little bit. Let those kind of heat up and wake them up, bring out the flavor of those so that that flavor continues to build. And heating up your spices is a nice way to get those to just pop. I've been making this my mother made this recipe. She taught me how to make it. I've doctored it over the years, but I've been making this recipe for 40 years. And it doesn't matter how much spice you put in, you just do it to taste. But sometimes I use a lot, sometimes I use a little, sometimes I don't use anything at all if I just want a really simple recipe. I am going to put in the garlic now, which is diced, and I'm going to put in some fresh basil and let that heat up a little bit and get that a little browned so that, not browned, but oh, it smells really good, so that it's part of the spice concoction. We're going to let this cook for about a minute. Maybe a little more because that garlic isn't quite as diced as I'd like it. And when my mother made this, she would make the meatballs, which we'll be making next. And she would fry them up a little bit and then put them in the sauce. I don't do that part anymore because I have several vegan children, and so this is completely vegan the way I'm making this. And then I'll make the meatballs on the side. And so I smell that very strongly, and it smells delicious. And so the next thing I'm going to do is put some wine in. And I've now got this about a little bit over medium heat. And what I want to do with this is burn the alcohol off. Get that in there. And just let that simmer for a few minutes and reduce and make sure that alcohol all dissipates. You don't want that taste adds a little bit of, you don't want that in this. And if you can't drink it, as far as wine is concerned, don't put it in your food. Cooking wine is not something I would recommend. Have at it if you love it, but I just have a bottle of red wine and a bottle of white wine on hand all the time just for cooking. And it makes a big difference in the food to have the real wine. So if I wouldn't drink it, I don't put it in my food that I'm cooking. And as you can see, it's starting to simmer a little bit here, and we'll let that go for a couple of minutes. And this, for the wine for this, I use like a Cab or a Merlot or something with a rich taste. You don't want, you can put Pinot Noir in or something like that, but it's a lighter taste. I'm trying to build a rich flavor because there is no meat in this to give it that extra bit of flavor. So we're gonna let that go for about another minute, and it just smells heavenly. Okay, so that is, if you can see that, that is turning a deep, almost maroon color, and it's reduced by quite a bit. So I'm gonna let that go for about 15-20 more seconds, and then I'm going to pour in, I'm gonna put the bay leaves in. I have 2 bay leaves. Don't forget to take these out when you get ready to serve, and I'm gonna let those, get them in there, just stir them around a little bit. And then I'm going to add, I've got this so full I can barely pick it up, but I'm gonna add 4 cans of tomato product, and it's 28 cans. And this is another one of those things where you don't have to be too particular. I've got 2 cans of diced tomatoes in here, a can of, and 2 cans of crushed, oh no, a can of crushed tomatoes and a can of tomato sauce. All the 28-ounce size. And if you don't have any diced tomatoes, that's fine. If you have just tomato sauce, it just gives, I like the extra texture, but you can use whatever cans you have around. And then we're gonna stir this up. And see, already the work we've done with the wine and the sautéing has already given it a much deeper look than it had when you just put those tomatoes in. So you know that it's already starting off with a great beginning, so that this is going to end up being delicious. I'm actually going to cook this today for probably 3 hours and let it really meld together. We're going to add salt and pepper a little bit later. Sometimes I add a little bit of honey or some kind of sweetener to this. It depends on how this does. But we'll come back and we will taste this and then start adding the seasoning and try to figure out how it's tasting. And I'm actually
quiet on the set.
All right. Okay, so the sauce is done. I'm gonna put some salt in it. It definitely needs some salt. It's very fresh tasting, but it's almost too fresh tasting, so I'm probably going to end up adding a little bit of sugar to it, which I try not to do, but this is for dinner tonight, and let's see how that tastes. Oh, that's good. A little bit more. Okay, and we'll add some pepper. Okay, then I'm going to taste that again. Oh, that's good. And then I'm going to add literally a couple of pinches of salt just to take that edge off. I mean, sugar. It's sugar. Because it's just a little bit light. That should just take care of that. That's all it needed, was just a couple of pinches just to take that edge off. And by tomorrow, this will have settled and that will all have gone away anyway. But so that's the spaghetti sauce. We have the meatballs that you can see here at some point. And thank you very much.